And welcome to the first waiting room session of 2022. And today we have Luvenia Kalia, a dancer, choreographer, yoga instructor. What else, Luvenia? What else do you do?
I just try my best. I'm just doing my best right now.
Uh, how are you, lah?
I'm good. It's funny I say that because I saw this meme online that was like, oh, so what do you do for a living? And I was like, well, I do my best. So I think now that's gonna be my comeback for everything. It's
Yes.
just it gets a bit tiring to explain.
Simply, it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so Luvenia, what we usually do is, we get the guests to talk about their journey. I mean, this podcast, this year especially, we're trying to explore the performing arts scene. Before this, we were getting musicians on it,
Yeah.
people who are involved in the music scene. So we thought, this year we'd
Yeah.
open up a little bit, lah. And you're lucky guest number one for the year 2022. So,
Welcome.
maybe
I
you
get
can
to
just walk
sit at
us
the
through
Yeah.
your
I get to sit
journey.
at the musician's table.
Oh, no, you have
That's
the,
so
you have
exciting.
proper VIP table now. Real
Yeah.
artists, real artists now. So it's
I actually love working with musicians because they're always like the chillest people.
you must be the only
always
one
like,
because I'm a sound engineer and I can't
really?
work with them. They drive me mental.
Oh,
Sarcasm, like, but there's
maybe.
a wee bit of truth. So, living
Yeah.
you're a dancer, choreographer, etc. How have you managed to cope, like with the musicians? How have you managed to cope through COVID? Since generally what you do requires a physical space and sort of close contact
Yeah.
with human beings, like so.
Um, yeah, wow. You see, this whole thing about labeling what you do, calling yourself like a dancer, or, I feel like in social circles, I always hesitate saying that I'm a dancer because you never get oh, okay reaction. Your reactions are always really, really interesting. It's always like, but it depends on the cultural context. I think here you say you're a dancer and they're like, the first thing comes to their mind is like, how do you make money? I was staying in the US before this, and when you say a dancer, they give you this dirty look like, oh, what kind of dancer? Um, so I think,
And what time?
yeah.
And what time do you go on?
And then exactly, and then if you're in a party and you say you're a dancer, they're like, oh, show us some moves, and I'm like, oh, let's not do this.
Oh, it's like it's like I'm a comedian. Tell us a joke.
Yeah, it tells a
Yeah,
joke. Or
yeah.
I'm
Hey,
like,
we
well,
musicians get it all the time, man. Hey,
I
I think I sing us a
know.
song. Come my gig, man. Cheapskate.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was like, I'll send you a quotation and then we'll talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, if they did that for doctors, I'd be like, can you please perform surgery on this man over here
Ah,
right
but
now
but
in this
but
space?
unfortunately, doctors do get as well because someone says they're a doctor invariably, and I've done it to doctors going like, I've got this pain here in my leg. Do you know what it
Really, yeah.
is?
Oh yeah, they definitely do get that.
I've got this
Like,
kind
can
of
you
backache.
diagnose me?
I've got this backache.
Yeah. You immediately want a free diagnosis, right?
Yeah, instantly.
Right.
Instantly, you want a free
Yeah.
diagnosis, like,
Just top up more drinks for him, I was like, yeah. After that, you like
yeah.
get a
so-
full checkup.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, just coming back to like how I've survived through the pandemic. I've actually survived fine. Um, Unfortunately, I don't have the sad story. I would call it privilege, really. But the story to it is that I was actually in the US when the pandemic hit.
Oh, okay.
I was at the peak of my traveling life, and like I don't know what it was, but the universe is just like, you need to go everywhere because after that you're gonna sit the fuck down.
Good.
So I was actually traveling. I went to Paris and then UK, and then I was in Spain for a bit, and then came back, and then went to Cambodia for a performance, and then back to the US. Irony, going to the US and then coming back to Southeast Asia, and then the pandemic hit, and I was actually you can say a mature student, finishing my bachelor's in dance in the US,
Where?
and in Pennsylvania, like
Pennsylvania?
the furthest where I was the only Malaysian person around. It's quite
That's
an
good.
experience. It was real America, you know, like real
Oh,
America.
my wife, my wife,
Yeah.
my wife did her undergrad in Chicago, and her boyfriend at the time he did his undergrad in Minnesota, so he was really in the depths of of that like real America, middle America, like
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. And then lockdown, you know, COVID happened, and then we kind of had to leave the dorms, and I just had to book the flight the next day, jump on the flight, still had like 50% of
Wow.
my life, like my stuff still there, and I got it, I think, a year later after coming back to
What?
Malaysia. Yeah, like I only got my stuff like much later because
Well,
and I
it's
was just
understandable
wearing my
because
mom's clothes.
you can't post nothing can be
Wow.
posted.
Oh
Like
yeah,
place was closed
yeah.
for like we couldn't even send Christmas
Yeah,
cards in 2020. Like so,
yeah, but
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
like actually what it was is that I didn't know if I was going back because
oh,
I still had a year of studies, like undergrad to finish, and I finished it online. I still didn't know, like, you know, there was a lot of uncertainty. Do I go back? So I just kind of continued my life like I wasn't going to go back. You know,
Hmm.
strangely, my first lockdown in Penang, I got yoga certified.
Nice.
Because you know, I did yoga kind of for myself and stuff like that, and now, you know, there's this whole legitimacy that you have to get certification to prove your worth, and you know, stuff like that. Same thing like a degree. um yeah, so I decided, okay, I'm gonna be really bored, I'm just gonna do stuff that I don't usually do. And then I started working uh with a with a restaurant and then, you know, slowly started to pick back things up, did one big project, and then got a job with a immersive storytelling company. So in an essence, like what I do now is, yes, I do dance and I do like a lot of like, my stuff is movement based. I mean, I'm a yoga instructor, so I just believe that, you know, body work on the body is as important as working on the mind,
Yes.
especially for kids and stuff like that. So that's like the gist of my practice. And so I teach a lot of yoga because it's easier to teach yoga than it is to teach dance. Honestly, I am not a dance teacher. Whenever someone says, oh, maybe you should open your studio, because that's like the only ideal future for a dancer, I cringe a little bit. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna open a studio. I do like just performing more than anything else, and like coming up with producing projects. Yeah, so I've survived through like a few Nana grants, some of those projects. Um, of course, I teach yoga regularly, and that was easily translated online. But 4 days a week, I'm a arts and culture producer for immersive storytelling company, working with like XR, AR, and VR development.
okay,
Um,
you're gonna have to go into that now.
yeah,
Yeah.
so
What's
so there's a lot of like,
what's immersive storytelling?
so
Right, I did yoga by the way before pandemic.
ooh,
It's the other way around.
ooh,
And I
before
was
the
the only
pandemic.
guy. I was the only guy. Yeah, so it was good. Yoga is
Oh,
very
it's
important. I
good.
realized
You know, I teach like young boys during the pandemic because the parents were like kind of losing their minds, saying that my kids don't even like to walk outside, they're stuck to their games and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it's like, I think it's so important for young boys to actually be
Uh,
comfortable with their bodies. It's
It's
like,
very important for young boys.
it's
It's not
so,
just be
Yeah.
comfortable
yeah,
with what to get. It's very important for young boys to be physical and get outside
Yeah.
yeah,
and
I mean,
yeah,
just physic being. I mean, like the
yeah.
fact that when I did that yoga, I was the only guy. I mean,
yeah.
like I suppose men just like like "Oh, I can't do that move. That's not masculine, or it's like
I
oh.
know there's this whole thing, but
Yeah.
it's so weird because like most
I,
yoga
I,
masters are men.
yeah, I don't know about that
Yeah,
anymore
true.
because like if listen if you're a man of my age and you listen to podcasts and you listen to someone like Joe Rogan and stuff like that who advocates
They all do
yoga.
yoga, is it?
Yeah,
Oh.
huge. Rogan and those guys in the guys in the martial arts are hugely into yoga because
But the martial arts
it benefits the flexibility like so much,
Yeah.
and it centers their mind like so that like they're huge advocates for it like so like
Yeah.
maybe
So many men with wrong postures, Yeah, but
Yeah.
like
my posture is shocking. My posture is so terrible. It's so bad. I just hunched over the whole time like. And I'm
Yeah,
trying.
and for someone like me with two freaking slip discs, you
oh
go for,
man.
because you're talking about slip discs and all this kind of like bad posture related injuries and stuff, right? and then you go to the hospital and the doctors are saying, okay, we're not going to suggest surgery because things like this we would try to avoid surgery, and then they'll put you through physio, and then you realize when you go for physio, the moves that you're actually doing or all the stretches are very similar to yoga.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially for like
yeah.
lower back and stuff.
That's so funny because I have a friend who's a man and a yogi, and
Oh,
and I was telling him about someone else, and I was saying, oh, this person really has like bad back problems, and then he just looks at the person and goes, emotional baggage.
there
Hmm.
you
It's
go.
like, whoa. Yeah, because in yoga, I mean, not the Lululemon yoga pants yoga that we, like if you go on Canva and you search yoga, you could never get anyone who's like Indian or Asian, none of those photos. But
No, you
in
gotta get
yoga,
some white guy from Northern California
yeah, exactly.
With a man
Yeah.
bun.
with a man
Yeah,
bun, definitely with a
don't
man
even
bun.
get me don't even get me started.
No,
But
no, we
like
want to we want to get you started. This is the point of this
and
podcast, is to get people
We're
started.
anti-man bun, yeah.
You
Look at
want
that.
to
Just lay it down.
rant about a man with a man bun? Rant with about a man with a man bun. Because
I appreciate a good man bun. I think man buns are great.
I wore high ponytails before, but the man bun is a whole different fucking kettle of fish.
Maybe it just gets in your face, so you don't want to be looking like a cheerleader. So a bun just seems more
Pigtails,
masculine.
I prefer
Pigtails
pigtails.
are good. Yeah,
Wait, that's Willie
pigtails.
Nelson, man. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway,
Well, as I was saying, yeah, like in like actual yoga, you do believe that any sort of posture issues
Mm,
comes with trauma or comes with like some
true.
sort of
True.
imbalance in your mind, or it's like very related, and
that might
it
that might be the thing stopping me. That whole kind of this
yeah
spirituality
but
side
it's
of it,
like,
like so.
yeah, and when I teach classes, I have to balance my language because I can't go full on hippy dippy. They're just gonna look at me like, what are you doing? So I have
Yeah.
to go, a little bit of Western science anatomy and stuff like that. But you see people who are quite shy or insecure, their shoulders tend to curve in this way, and they like their necks
True,
juts out a little bit. So there is
True.
some truth to it, like even in someone who's more of a Western medicine philosophy brain,
Mm.
practical brain that they have to see to understand, like you will be able to see this behavioral differences in the body.
There is certain behavioral from emotion, like, but I'm just adverse to any sort of thing that's sort of religious based. So that's probably my own biases to anything that seems sort of religious, as someone who is completely an atheist. So I tend to just shy away from it.
Yeah.
And say, I'm just like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's why
But but yeah. But going back to that, it's also body language. As a result of that, you can
Yeah.
tell if somebody's got like,
Right.
Yeah.
It just comes down to body language.
You know, people who are confident, they just walk upright and shoulders back, very, very confident.
Yeah.
You can see that.
Yeah.
And people are, as
Cheer.
you said,
Yeah.
people are shy, like tend to pull the old goth
Yeah.
posture of.
But then you also see the people who are very upright, but they're very like arched in their lower back, and usually you say there's a compensation. There's a lot of insecurity there.
There you go.
It's being compensated with this
The chest,
this like
the chest is pushed out
Yeah.
way too much. Like
way too much. It's like I need a
it's overcompensating.
yeah. I mean, okay, so coming back to me, like, having issues like saying that I'm a dancer, it's usually because all that we're talking about right now, for me, that's dance. Like that's like the body, like working with the body, understanding like emotional, physical, whatever attachment to the body. That falls under dance. Like if you walk in a park in Malaysia, you see everybody doing Tai Chi, people are moving about, like that's choreography in itself.
Yep.
So I think like when you say dance, there's always a pre-assumption of what that is. And it typically is whatever media has fed to you, which is a commercial background dancing
Of
or a
course.
rap video, or,
Of course, yeah.
so somehow like the pre-assumptions of what dance is makes it really hard to just kind of say I'm a dancer. So sometimes I like goreng a bit, I will say, okay, I work with the body, or I'm a movement artist, or we're still kind of defining what is the best way to kind of like introduce yourself,
but
not get huge reactions.
Yeah,
but
you know going in that most people who don't know what you do and they hear the word dance, I'm a dancer, are going to be biased by whatever they've been fed
Yeah.
previously. Like,
Yeah.
so knowing that going in, is it not easier for you just to describe get yourself set on what you think a dancer is,
Dancer, yeah.
and then
Yeah.
educate them on that, rather than
Right.
be afraid to tell them that what you do, you
Yeah.
set yourself.
Yeah. Well,
This is what I define as a dancer, and then
yeah.
educate them on actually what your definition of them. Because you know,
Yeah. The
you're
thing
correct.
is,
We're all
the thing
biased.
is,
We're all biased going
yeah,
in. Like
of
before this
course.
podcast started, when I read it, you're a dancer. I had the same thing going into my head. A choreographer doing
Right.
whatever.
Right.
Like so.
Yeah, I think well that depends on how much I want to invest into this conversation. If I'm on a Sunday, I'm having a drink, I don't really want to explain my existence to you.
True.
I'm just gonna
That's
try
not.
to. So now I'm learning to
That's
wrap
good.
it up,
No. That's
in a
fine.
sentence.
That's fine. Like that's perfectly up, and that's perfectly up to you to say. Listen,
Right.
I'm a
But in some
dancer.
situations, if you see someone who's like generally interested, they want to learn about it. Of
Yeah.
course, I'm always like
Of
open to
course.
like explaining myself, but it's like time and place, and but we have to learn how to somehow have an elevator pitch so that
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
just wrap it
True.
up and then okay, guys, so let's move on. You
True,
drink.
true, true.
So,
Yeah.
so Luvenia, to the three of us, what is
Oh
dance
God.
to you? Because I mean, like Derek, I mean, like
Yeah.
Derek, and I know we just got to know each other, and
Yeah.
I got to spend some time when I was back
Yeah.
in Penang watching one of the projects that you actually worked on, and to know that your introduction to dance was traditional Indian dance, right? So
Yep.
I'm quite sure you had to go through like learning up the history, and Indian traditional dance is like wow, it's dating back to God knows when, and then
Yeah.
you are also involved with lots of new stuff. We're talking about
Yeah.
contemporary movement, and so
Yeah.
to the three of us now, how would you describe what you do and what is dance to you?
Well, okay, just going off the fact that
And do it in one sentence, please, because we don't have
oh.
time. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Well,
You want an elevator pitch? You want an elevator?
Yeah, let's do that.
Elevator
Elevator
pitch.
elevator pitch. In a sentence, I would say dance is just reconnecting with your body, like going back to
Here's a
your
question.
roots almost. Because
Here's a question. Does music have to be involved?
oh yeah, music
So-
always has to be involved. But
Okay,
but
that's good. That's good because that
Yeah.
gives us. So you need a medium to respond.
I'll
to.
go into the music. I'll go into the music part of dance because I'm really like uh we'll talk about that in a second. But just going back to
Yeah.
the background of going into Indian dance, I will tell you about my dance background. I was basically the person who took anything that was available in the vicinity of Penang. I took that dance. Like that was
Okay.
me because I had an addiction or a curiosity or something. But I started off with Bharatanatyam because of my family being half Indian, saying, "Oh, she has to be a good cultural. Let's do this." And I did that. I did ballet. I did jazz. I did tap. Um, if anybody knows me in 2000, in the early days of my dance career as a 9-year-old, I was known as a belly dancer, which a lot of people forget now. But I was a belly dancer. I was a young girl, the youngest belly dancer person
Oh,
that
are you
people
saying
invited for weddings.
are you saying ballet or belly?
Belly
Belly
dance.
by
dancing.
like Middle Eastern belly dancing. Belly
Yes,
dancing. Oh, okay,
yes.
cool.
And I did a lot of Bollywood at weddings and stuff, like commercial gigs. That was what I was doing. I was doing all sorts of stuff. I learned in college that I knew nothing about dance. I learned that, everything I was doing, I was kind of like, when I got to college, my body was very damaged. There was a lot of injuries. I had a lot of bad technique. I had a lot of things that was killing my career more than growing it. So I
Okay.
had to retrain when I was older, when I went to college. I had to retrain my body, learn about actually how the body works, the anatomy and everything like that, to actually have sustainable, dance career. Because I think it's everyone like kind of goes, okay, well, I want to learn dance, but I don't want to go too far into it. I'm just going to become a ballet teacher, not realizing how much responsibility that is to train a kid and
Yeah,
to teach them
exactly.
the muscles. Majority of the teachers have no understanding of the body anatomy, so it's kind of scary.
It's like being a singer
Um,
and just it's like being a singer and
yeah.
just smoking all the time, which a lot of singers do. Like it's just you know what you're doing to your actual instrument. So for a
See,
dancer,
maybe
Depends.
it's not.
Depends what you're smoking. Oh, depends what you're smoking.
Yeah.
I don't think
I
any
don't
sort of,
smoke. I don't
I,
smoke cigarettes. You know?
I think any sort of
Yeah.
smoking. If you are a professional singer, I think any sort of smoking damages your vocal cords in any way, shape, or form. But like, as a dancer, you like it should be your thing to take care of your instrument, which is your body. Like,
Yeah. And when you say now I do contemporary because it's the easiest way to label what I do. Because when people say contemporary, there's a lot of leeway of what it can be. And I would say that all of the different genres that I've kind of taken into my life has fallen into my contemporary.
that could
So
be
you'll see
that could be a
hints of it.
50-year period. Because if it's not ballet, it's not tap, and it's not jazz, you can label it sort of as contemporary, can't you? Which is
Yeah, you just call it
that's
contemporary.
the
Contemporary is
70s.
the blanket statement of
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
what
True.
what dancers nowadays do. But if you ask me, like hip hop, contemporary, they all have a similar principle. It's not about the genre. And now a lot of places have stopped calling like classes like jazz class or this class or ballet class. They've gone with the names of the people and just said choreography or experimental or improvisation. So it's
Okay.
not, so you're not defining, because most dancers at a certain age would have tried at least 3 or 4 styles.
Yeah.
That's true.
And whatever they are doing at the minute is a combination of their styles, their life experience, what they're about, their natural body rhythm, how they respond to music, the choices in music, things like that. So there's all this genres are just kind of like us really trying hard to fit into categories, and it is proven to fail more and more.
True. True. True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To understand
Yeah.
genres is to understand that after that they're just there. You don't have to play within
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
lines, right? Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's more like, how do I write my proposal? Okay, I need to pop in some sort of category that can connect to a person who needs a box,
Yeah,
right?
it's a buzzword.
Yeah.
It's a buzzword for
But-
people who generally aren't.
But
in
people, the
industry.
people with money, they are all in boxes.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't understand what you do. Oh yeah, I do this. Oh, you know. Here, okay, I sign for you. It's so true. Yeah.
So going to music, does dance need music? I like to play with and without music, because I think that dancers naturally respond to, let's not generalize. I would say I naturally get very driven by music, that it becomes the music, it's not me anymore. So I have to kind of do a lot of things in silence as to fully like grasp what I'm doing. And once I put the music in, it's like I have to be very informed about what music I'm picking, because if the music plays, like if you have lyrics to a music, like for example, if you have lyrics to music, a lot of people, because that's how they process, they respond to the lyrics.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know
So
exactly.
it
what you
becomes
mean.
very narrative, very literal.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But
Yes.
I think I like to respond to layers. Usually I try to block out the lyrics and listen to every other layer.
It's very
that
hard
is
though.
in
Like
it.
it's very hard with
Yeah.
lyrics.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to
It
put
takes
someone
a
down.
lot of like practice and a lot of like, I think now instantly my mind goes to like the back rhythm, like what I
The
probably
backbeat,
don't know
the
any of
rhythm,
these
yeah,
terms,
the
but like the
backbeats.
backbeat,
Yeah.
the rhythm, the constant rhythm, and
Post-rock.
then try to
Listen to some
move
post-rock.
out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This reminds me, Asmil. Asmil, remember when you guys when Asmil, and Truly Asia played at the that saxophone store.
Oh, saxophone star, yeah.
Remember when I came and watched, and then before you guys got on stage, and there was this one performer who was basically playing the saxophone, but in a very abstract way, and then you had this dancer who was dancing to the different sounds, and some of the sounds are very jarring, right? It's not like a progression.
Not
or
melody
whatever.
lah. Yeah, it's not melody.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That okay, my pet peeve, let me tell you my pet peeve is when I go to a dance
You just got
concert
one?
or performance. No, loads of them, but let's go with this one because this one's an evident one and I think you would connect to it. Is that when I go to a dance performance and it's all safe ambient music.
Oh.
It's like you go to a dance performance, I will tell you there's always that track that a contemporary dancer would play because he, whoever did not want to put effort into the choreography because they said, I'm going to take the safest thing. I could do anything. I could do super speed. I could go really slow. It will not change. You can. So what I like to practice.
Is this because? Sorry, the interrupt. Is this because they're betting on the education of the audience? That the audience will be just like, oh, we have no idea what we're watching anyway, so this seems to be good, so we'll just think it's good. Is that
I don't know. I just think it's a safe bet. Like you don't have to choreograph to the music at all.
True.
So what I do is I go on YouTube, and you guys can try this. Go on YouTube, look for a contemporary dance performance, mute the video, and play whatever you want. It'll work anyway. So that's where you know they were really, really safe with the choices. But I think it's a pattern that happens that people tend to always kind of use this like ambient background music that you put in a background of a video.
But
like when you put the background of video, right?
Is that still not down? Is still not? Is,
New wave shit.
yeah, but is that still not down to the lack of education of the audience? Because, for example, like either a jazz audience or a metal audience, these are two audiences of the most educated when it comes to their own specific genres of music. They're very, very educated, and they're very, very snobbish. Okay. So if a jazz band or a metal band went up and started playing the metal or jazz version of what you're saying, if it's the safe song, they would be literally booed off the stage, or they wouldn't get any applause at all. I mean, the audience would literally. I've seen bands, especially metal audiences. I've seen metal audience boo bands off the stage because they're either not good musicians or they're playing it safe. So. In that case, is it down to the lack of education of the audience? Because from my point of view, of the audience is really educated in dance, and someone decided to play it safe, then the audience will be turned off instantly. Like they'll be like,
Well, I would say like the majority of your audience are not those people. Because you're the central figure, unlike a band where you're really paying attention to the music. You're the central figure. People are watching you. They're not necessarily everyone's there to hear the music that you play.
Okay.
You know, that's just supposed to support. So you put a little bit of drama of it, you know, you be a little bit emotional, you get away with it, like easy, you know. I will not say that I've never picked in safe ambient music. When someone gives me a last minute gig and I have to put something together, that's what you go for. You go for the safest, easiest bet, you know, you can goreng and get through. Fine.
Cari makan gig.
Yeah.
Cari makan gig.
Cari makan, right? Cari makan gig. You know, that's when you go for the safe ambient.
Okay.
But if I'm gonna pay like a lot of money to watch this dance show and I show up and everyone's playing ambient music and I can just like
but that's the thing,
go like this.
But that's the thing. You're educated, so you know that you're seeing. That's what I mean. You're educated, so if you pay a lot of money and you're seeing safe shit on stage, you're pissed off. Yes. You are pissed off, like
it's worse if
that's what I mean by the
Yeah.
education of the audience. Multiply you by 100 or 200 people,
right,
of educated audience, and they're all going to be pissed off, and the dancer's going to.
I feel like the musicians would get pissed off more.
No, because you can get away with a lot because the audience is maybe in Malaysia, generally speaking, aren't so discerning, right? Yeah.
Right. So you get, but you do get. It is a habit to get complacent, like lazy. You know, like I know everybody's gonna still think I'm good at this, so I'm just gonna, you know. And sometimes it's like that.
So like.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've reached the end of the first part of the podcast. So. Flies and so it does, and we've got good conversation.
So
It's good.
So we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll jump back in. You okay to do another session?
Yep.
Okay. So what time is it now? 10:40. So 10:45 we'll jump back in. Okay.
Same link.
Same link. We'll see you in 5 minutes.
See you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
And we're back with part 2 of the Luvenia Kalia podcast. Welcome back, Luvenia. Thank you
Yeah.
for staying with us.
Yeah,
Hey.
thank you for saying.
So, I still don't think we've got an answer to what immersive dance is.
Immersive dance. Well, no, I work in so the company that I work with is immersive storytelling.
Oh yeah, immersive. Sorry,
Yeah.
apologies. Immersive
So,
storytelling. So, what is immersive
yes.
storytelling?
So that's a really wide, I mean, like it's a really wide term. It can fall into installations, it can fall into, VR experiences, it can fall into AR experiences, anything that involves a narrative.
For the uneducated, can you describe both VR and AR for
Right? So virtual
anybody who has no
reality.
idea what you're talking about?
Yeah. So virtual reality, meaning like the actual VR virtual reality headset. So like, of course, we know a lot of these things are related to gaming.
Yeah,
a lot of this is connected to gaming, but it is moved slowly into film. As we know, 360 filming. 360 filming is kind of like part of immersive storytelling. That it just anything that involves you, that is immersive, that is some sort of narrative based.
All right.
Immersive storytelling. So I work with a company most of my week.
The last thing, AR. Sorry.
AR, augmented reality. So the easiest way to say, well, your Instagram filters is AR. Your Pokemon Go is a very good example of augmented reality, which is the big hype and everything.
Back in me and Osmo's day, augmented reality was dropping fucking magic mushrooms and going out in the field somewhere. That was augmented. That was augmented reality. That was augmented reality for us. Is that cow purple? What the fuck?
Yeah, when you start to see things that are stationary moving. Augmented
we were
reality.
we were analog, not digital.
Yeah, we were for us, our augmented reality was pure analog. It was analog. I had a friend once whose body disappeared when he was on mushrooms. It was hilarious. He looked down his body, he couldn't see his body. This was fucking hilarious.
Oh man.
So
Luvenia, this company is based in Penang or what?
Yeah, it's based in Penang, and it's also in Australia. So it's like Malaysia, Australia based.
There seems to be a lot of Australian companies that are to do the thing here, because there's a lot of post-production.
There's a huge startup culture here. Like there's a lot of initiative from MDEC, I think, to bring down a lot of startups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, are we having an augmented reality experience now? Because you're so clear in the front of the camera, and then at the back I could see like something moving.
But a podcast is under an immersive experience. You're allowing people to get immersed into the conversation. It feels like you're the fifth person in the conversation, something that's immersive, that makes you feel included in the
you just elevated our podcast. I never thought we were doing immersive.
Yeah.
Congratulations, boys. We've been doing it all this while.
Yeah, we just thought we were 4 decades having a conversation. We didn't think it was anything fancy.
Yeah.
What do you see? What do you see? What we're going to say the next time people say, "What's your podcast?" Oh, it's an immersive experience.
Yeah, you missed it out.
Immersive experience.
It's the copywriting.
Yeah,
working on that copywriting and the labeling of it.
We offer an immersive experience in stupidity.
So head on over to our YouTube page.
Yeah, head on over to our YouTube channel. If you want an immersive experience in stupidity, we are your guys. So how does your background relate to immersive AR, VR?
It doesn't. It fully doesn't.
Okay.
And this is a job that I got in the pandemic, of course, because coming back to Malaysia, if you want to be full-time freelance dancer,
hard.
I'm not really sure what you'd be eating at that point.
Well, I know where you'll be performing, because I work I'm an audio engineer. One of the venues I work in, it's like place called Susie Wong's, and we have dancers as part of our cabaret show. Like, so, like,
Wow.
yeah, but I don't know how much they get paid. They don't get paid a lot. Like, and they're working all the time. Like, they're working like
Yeah.
7 days a
Yeah.
week. And they may be doing
That's what it is.
they may be doing 2 or 3 shows a day. Like, because half the
Yeah.
time we'll get a call or I'll get a text message
Oh.
going, hold off in the cabaret, Derek. The dancers are coming from another show. Just hold off and stuff like that there. So, like, so yeah, they're
Yeah.
working a lot. So yeah, being
Yeah.
a freelance dancer, and this is in KL, it's not in Penang. Being a freelance dancer, even in KL, it's hard graft. It's hard job.
Yeah.
And Penang,
But actually, Penang is a lot more difficult, but I enjoy. I mean, I studied to be a dancer, right? I've been a dancer most of my life, but I enjoy anything that is in the industry. Like being producing or, project management, whatever it is, I enjoy just fully being in a creative sector. It doesn't matter which part of it, what the disciplines are. And I think like whatever I learn from composition is a universal, like anything you
absolutely.
use it in any
Absolutely.
industry. This, a lot of things can translate even though they feel very far apart. And now
100%.
as we move
100%.
move on, like in life now, even more and more like sectors are just crossing over. But I was actually introduced to this job through being hired as a dancer.
Okay.
To get to be put in a VR experience. So recorded either like mocap suits, like how we do animation action
I know what you
movie
mean.
mocap suits,
all
or
all the dots over the,
right, or
yeah.
volumetric filming, which is another way to translate movement into experiences. So that's
Yeah.
how I was actually introduced to the job. That I got a dance gig, and then eventually they were looking for someone to project manage. I said, never done this before. I'll give it a go. And
So
I'm quite a
take us through a job where you project manage. What is your role? Say your last job that you project manage. What's your role entail? How do you go about doing it?
Meeting deadlines, doing stuff like that, like just getting, but also a lot of the creative content, like coming up with how we're gonna do it, what are we gonna do,
So
making sure everyone's doing their job, stuff like that.
Is there still a creative role for you, or is it just being the
It's
the boss?
definitely a creative role for me. There's a lot of idea generation, which is
That's good.
that keeps me going. And
Yeah.
sometimes I think with personal projects, because of course I do a lot of dance stuff on the side, but sometimes you need a little bit of a balance.
You do.
That really helps, because for me, I almost think like 2 projects a year to create something, whether film or performance, is the bulk. It's like a lot for me already, because I put so much energy into research and putting yourself out there, and really like it drains you. And for you to constantly want to come up with content, like you need to live a little bit, because the content comes from the living. If you're not, if you're not doing life, if you're not like getting inspired by things, and you're just trying to push to come up with products constantly, it gets very tiring.
You might be fine for a year or 2, but you will get stale. Your ideas will get stale very, very quickly if you're not out there seeing who if you're not out there seeing the young kids and what they're doing and what they're bringing to the table, because there are always going to be people bringing new stuff to the table. And it's usually the kids.
Then you just influencer lah. Like, hey guys. Never live, never have scars, no disappointment. Everything's great.
The scars are gonna give you scars are gonna give you whatever it is that drives you towards it. I think what I realized, I think when I was younger, was how everything was just so fast that you didn't give your time to brew. That now, like, it's always like the people that I collaborate with is like, I'm just gonna plant this seed. It'll be a WhatsApp voice message saying, I thought about this today, I think this is a seed, let's sit on it, and then make a meeting 2 months later. So that we can really plant a seed in your head and slowly start to nurture it and grow it. And so when I was graduating my undergrad, I found it really hard, first of all, because I was in 2 places at a time. I was taking classes at 12 a.m. and like doing all my classes at night, working during the day and doing projects at the same time. And I just thought, like I need something a little bit more, like all this is to make sense in the bigger picture. So I kind of gave myself a topic that will bleed into all the outcomes, all the performances that I was going to come up with that year. So all my choreography and all the projects that I came up with just in that span of time, the MCO was linked. They're from the same seed. They're just different pathways of doing that. So I found that really made sense for me. And then after that, I told myself, okay, I need to just take a seat back, let everyone else do the producing, and then coming up with ideas, I'll collaborate and contribute. But it's something about, especially being in Penang, the dance scene is really small. You always feel like you have to initiate, take lead, and sometimes you just don't want to do that.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
I come from a
Luvenia.
Go ahead. Sorry, Fabian, go ahead.
No, you said you were going to say.
No, I was about to say I come from a small town. Like when it came to organizing gigs back in the day and stuff like that, I felt like if I didn't do it, no one was going to do it. So you always felt like you were the one who has to fucking push it, like.
Oh yeah, I still feel the same way whenever I go back to Penang. When it comes to even performing and stuff. Like I remember I was back there for Christmas, and then I bumped into Logan from Kaya. Yeah, I mean, these guys know who he is. And in Penang, and he's like, "So what's happening, man? What's the gig scene like in Penang?" And I was like, "Shit, I don't know how to explain it to him." I'm like, it's not so good. I mean, on one side, Penang is trying to portray itself as the arts hub, of the country, but the artists are not being appreciated enough, and what's actually going on there,
It's weird because all these websites, the Western websites, when they post the top 10 places they retire to in the world, Penang's always in the top 5.
This is for white people.
Doesn't mean
white people with money.
Exactly. Retire doesn't mean they're gonna go to gigs.
But that's the thing. But this is the thing. When it comes to people with money, and generally they're talking about Western people with money who want to retire and somewhere fucking. The art scene is an essential element to that choice.
Yeah.
It just is. It really fucking is. Like most people who got real money from the West, they don't want to go to somewhere that's boring. They want to go to somewhere that's culturally vibrant.
Yeah.
So and the arts are essential to that. They're fucking essential.
Our government tak faham lah, but our government don't faham all this.
Yeah, because they sapu all the money. And then these people are coming there and just buying up all the rich property, expensive property in Penang.
Well, that's fine. They can buy up all the rich property. That's got nothing to do with the fact that there still has to be vibrant cultural arts scene to attract them. There just has to be.
I think a lot of the work in Penang is very environmentally driven. Like there's a lot of there's a lot of crosses between the non-profit sector and the arts and culture sector. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of wanting to do better in terms of I don't know, maybe it's island vibes, right? This is like a normal, usually a lot of people are animal activists. There's actually a lot of activists in Penang, which a lot of people don't know. It's a very huge activist scene, and most of them are artists. So you would see a lot of work that's that related. But in terms of somehow it feels that the people who work in Penang, they work alone. They work with themselves. They are very comfortable working with themselves, and they're very good at working with themselves. So you see there's a little bit of a divide that everyone's kind of doing their own thing. They're doing really well, but they're doing it in their own safe spaces. So sometimes it feels like there's a little bit of there's not enough of a community.
Yeah.
But also there's that the differences of a Chinese educated community, because we are majority Chinese state. So you have the Chinese educated community and then the English speaking community. So there's a lot of divide here and there.
It's the same here. It's the same here in KL.
Yeah.
crazy amongst
Well, I mean,
musicians,
just like Penang House of Music lah. A lot of Penangites never been to Penang House of Music.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's also that musicians are watching musicians. Dancers are watching dancers. Visual artists are buying other
don't
visual
cross,
artists'
right?
work.
Yeah,
And
so true.
there's a lack of but it's funny
cross-pollination.
because
The cross-pollination is almost
Very important. Very
yeah,
important.
which is
it's
really
important.
strange, because coming back I felt like I don't really have the choice to collaborate with a lot of dancers. So most of the projects that I do in Malaysia, I'm the only dancer
Oh,
very regularly, and I enjoyed that. I enjoy things that come out of multidisciplinary practice because you learn so much from each other. And well, it's not always easy because we all have different languages, but we slowly start to learn to speak, to kind of learn where our language meets. And just recently, I think last year, what we did was Skin. I don't know if
Skin,
JB, you would watch it.
Yeah.
The Skin. So Skin was crazy. I will tell you. So on that team, you had two of us who were like performing artist, movement, theater kind of people, and then you had film. We had music.
Who is the music?
No, Santosh.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
So Santosh did our music. We had Tina on board for camera and DOP.
Who was one of your performers? Could have been one of my ex-students. Palan's my ex-student. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So,
everybody's one of it. Asma's ex-students.
Yeah, Pal and I used to live together in Singapore. So when
small.
So we were roommates and we grew up together. Penang's really, really small.
Yes.
Everybody seems to be from Penang. There's so many people from Penang that live in KL. Have the music.
And a lot of KL people in Penang sometimes.
Sangkut, right?
Yeah. Sangkut. But it's like everyone wants to. So grass is greener on the other side, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So with Skin, like it's such a learning process because you're working with people from different disciplines. But it's what I'm used to, what I prefer almost, because it allows me not to be stagnant. Being able to like even have the privilege to go overseas, study. I was in Singapore, then in the US, and come back. You feel almost responsible to contribute, to make sure that you're kind of like whatever you have is part of having access to things that you need with money, that you need to be above middle class. So you come back and you're like, okay, whatever I have, I'm willing to share, and I want to do that. But because you're like one of the few who had that opportunity to go out and learn and come back, so you have very small pool of people to be able to collaborate with. So sticking within a discipline is not the luxury that you have being in Penang, and that within restriction there's always beauty with it, that it forces you to push yourself a little bit further, think a little bit further, broaden your perspective. And that project, I think, was one of the best.
Here's a question I've asked people previously, not on this podcast, but in our interviews, that have went away to like the States, especially artists, and then come back to like either KL or Hong Kong and places like that, and then like where they've went to places where the standards are so high, and then they come back here. Have you had to reduce what you would class as your standards for yourself to operate properly? Or have you been able to manage to keep your standards where they should be? Because you said, I mean,
what do you mean by standards?
You said before you went to university, you didn't know how to, your technique was bad and stuff like that. You learned proper technique and stuff like that there. Okay, since you've come back and you started working with people, have you had to lower your expectations on where they'll be level wise, or they're all okay to be up at your level?
Absolutely not. Like I cannot advocate for this enough, but I feel like there's too much importance in getting a degree and whatever.
Okay, cool.
For me, like if you're talented, you're talented. You don't have to have that. You don't need to have to go overseas. You don't need a piece of paper to prove your worth in that sense. And the thing is that
especially in the arts.
And I'm a person who really enjoys education. Like I love being in school. I love it. And it's not so much, it's more the luxury of being able to focus on just your art.
Yeah, one thing.
It's the time
It's a
and
bubble.
the
It's a bubble away
dedication.
from real life, like
Right.
that education affords you.
And you're constantly like you're receiving and you're giving and you're receiving and you're giving. When you're actually working in the industry, it feels like you're constantly giving and you're not receiving anything. So what it is you're paying a lot of money to have that luxury and the time and the resources to completely focus on your work, which rewards you, of course, because you learn more about yourself. You learn more about what you're good at, what you like, what you don't like. Some people don't necessarily have that luxury, but it doesn't mean that their standards are not up to my standards. Like there's nothing of that sort. And the aesthetic and your practice and whatever comes out of your experience, like I would say that because I've come from a certain kind of education, it's made me a little bit rigid, like which I have.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So I have to work through because
you're a bit myopic on being able to see the spaces because of the education. You can only see within a certain zone.
Yeah, and you have to constantly like check yourself, because
that becomes down to your own ego then. So you don't have if your hubris doesn't kick in, you have to be humble enough to you're actually quite correct. That looks better and it should perform better. Like cool.
And I think that goes across the board, like especially in the art scene. I mean,
in the art scene especially,
it's arts in itself is an expression. It's supposed to be an expression, whether it's visual arts, whether it's performing arts, music, whatever.
I think there's certain fields where education where the education level is essential. The sciences probably being the main one. Like so,
there's some things that I feel some things that do influence me in terms of education, in terms of my background, is anatomy stuff. Like when I see like dancers working incorrectly, like that's physically harming their bodies, that you would need education to know.
But that's what I was talking about.
So I think in terms of that, when you talk about standard, it's not so much about performance or expression and everything. It's more about like when I'm guiding or teaching, or when I see someone else teaching and they're not, and they're allowing the student to kind of damage their body constantly.
I should be more clear. That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
That level of technique, when it's specifically to the technique, not to the actual performance or their ability to guide a show or something like that. It's technique specific.
And and I think what is scary sometimes is that you have people pushing for aesthetics that you see on YouTube, media, whatever, you see, and now you have the film angles, the little things like that, and people are like, why don't I look like that? I say that's because it's not just dance, it's also film. If I move a camera in like this, it's going to make your movement look more impactful. So I think there's all these things in lack of education that people are trying to achieve certain aesthetics, not realizing that everybody is different. Like everybody is not capable of fitting into one category. Like ballet, for example, like we send kids, a lot of families send their kids to ballet. When they did Russian ballet, they picked their children based on their body types. They picked their children and they trained them from there. So in terms of there's this rigid curriculum, like British,
and they don't understand that Russian ballet was like fucking Natasha Romanoff out of fucking Agent the Marvel Universe. These people were these kids were trained like fucking assassins all day, every day. They don't understand what you would actually have to put your kid through to be that level of ballet dancer. Like,
but I mean, education and capitalism has come in. I mean, as an educator myself, you realize that because people now like, I got money, I want to pay. When they realize, sorry, your kid doesn't fit this. No, I got money, I pay. And that's the thing.
That's the thing. Even with schools like you can't do what the Russians were doing. You can't do that anymore. But you have to create accessibility within your classes. You can't try to get everyone to fit one aesthetic because it's not possible. There has to be leeway for expression, which I feel like I didn't have access to as a kid here. And hopefully now some part of me can contribute that factor of it, that you don't have to think about, you don't have to watch TV, look at a dancer and say that I want to look like that. You need to, it needs to come from, it needs to work internally. Like I always advocate for this tiny dance where it almost looks like you're not moving, but you just kind of like, you know, like jamming in the corner. Like that is the dance that you need to establish before you do any of these high kicks or anything like that. Yeah, so that's the one thing that I feel like what has like made me really particular about is things like that. But also in a place like Penang or Malaysia, maybe we don't have a lot of things like sprung floors. You know, I danced on cement floor where yes, it's damaging for my joints. Yes, I was under the sun, but I can walk on the sun now.
Like, true, toughens you up. Yes, true.
It does toughen you up, but at the same time, I'm like,
shouldn't be the case.
I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do that. And a lot of techniques, like because I went for you know, I'm Western educated in the sense that I don't want, when I'm teaching kids, I don't want to scream at them and tell them to listen to me. I don't want to assert authority. But that's what they're used to. So somehow you have to find a balance between those things, because if you're too soft, people take advantage of you. If you're too hard, you're like being the person you don't want to be.
Line, man.
That's the fine line. Exactly.
Yeah. So it is like it you can never fully apply what you get in education into the real world. It doesn't work. But you have to still consider it and see like what is the best practice for you. But everyone's just kind of doing their best. You know, like,
very contextual.
Like, that's what we have to do. We have to like be conscious of it, question like you know, now I'm working with a community and like teaching kids movement, and they're the ones that don't really have access to classes and money for classes and things like that. And I every weekend when I come back from that, I'm reflecting heavily on was anything too much, did I use the right language, do you feel like you know, are they enjoying it? You know, there's so many things that you start to question and you're like, okay, what can I do better? And you know, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna still, like, nobody's perfect, it's gonna be up and down.
But at least you're giving back, like you're giving back in seemingly in a good way, like, and you care. You care, which is the most important thing, like.
You know, like tertiary education in Malaysia, I joke my colleagues, but I really mean it. Like it's 3 years, but the first year I always tell them is rehabilitation really. Because you got to rehabilitate the ideas you had, like you spoken earlier, right? Like you signed up with this, but hey, hold on, this is what it's really about. You're not buying a burger here, man. We're not here. This is
and I would say like the most shocking thing about coming out of Malaysian education system and going overseas is that suddenly I was not given a framework of what I'm supposed to do. Like, what is this? You know, like I remember being in college, getting an assignment with no instructions, like one line, and just said, okay, tomorrow. I was like, wait, is there a format? What do I do? Where's the ABCD? Like, why is it just one question? Like, you know, like you don't know where to start because you're so used to growing up in high school.
Are you guys just spoon-fed everything?
No, not spoon-fed, dude. I tell you something. University here, you give instructions, right? Malaysia, primarily, is a failure to understand instructions. You write everything down. Students will ask you exactly the same things you written. Whereas when I tell them, hey, you go study overseas, you give you one line, man.
They give you one line. Figure it out. And but that also comes with the confidence of not thinking that you can deliver such work, because you're so used to people saying, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. You did it wrong. You answered wrong. I mean, come on. In high school, you know, for us non-Muslims, we had to study pendidikan moral, where we memorize moral values.
Moral values. Nilai murni. And
if you
have
got one word
wrong, it's wrong.
It's wrong.
One word
you
wrong,
just
all wrong. Yes.
Like, how has this made me a better person? I'm so confused. You know, like it's like there's this structure with no leeway around it that doesn't celebrate individuals, does not allow for anything. If you muscle art stream in high school, you're considered bodoh, right?
I was art stream.
But that's tertiary education fucking anywhere. Like, I mean, like secondary school education.
No. Here, it's different, dude. It's different here. Don't compare. Here we got MQA.
It's all about control. It's all about control.
Yeah.
It's all about, even back. I mean,
so I can go on about being a tertiary educator in Malaysia because it's bullshit, activists against this shit. But yeah,
And
it's true, man. It's true.
Yeah.
I can go on about how I wanted to do arts. I so wanted to do arts. I fucking hated whatever science subjects that I had to take in Form 4 and Form 5. But the teachers actually came over to my house. They basically came to my house to meet my parents because my parents were like, "Oh, you want to do arts? Okay, lah, go ahead." But you see, they came from a generation where you could do arts or whatever. It's fine. What you're good at, what you like, you do that. But now it's different. Like the teachers came over to my house and sat with my parents and said, your son actually did pretty well. Why is he going to arts? He should be in science. Don't put him in arts because they want to have the easy way out. Like you just put everyone in arts who didn't score well, and then the teachers won't really pay attention to them and blah blah blah.
I mean, the art stream, was it really art though? Like
no,
you know what I mean? Like but
like I said, the teachers don't even pay attention to the art scene.
Exactly.
I
feel
the
like
art stream.
Yeah. See, when I was in school, like my teacher used to be like, "Oh, Luvenia doesn't do this, doesn't do that. She's just gonna end up marrying some man, and then like blah 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 blah." Once I left school and I actually like started doing things, they're like, "Oh, I heard like my juniors started calling me. Wait, this teacher started saying that you're very successful now. Like use you as an example." I was like, "What?"
I be coming to the class going, "Motherfucker, don't be using me as an example." The whole time I was there.
I was like, you. But I mean, thankfully I had a very supportive like family environment. My parents were cool parents, They took us out for salsa festivals. We listened to a lot of music growing up. We went to one of the bagan, which used to be where all the cooler parents bring their kids and drink. We went out to those places. I had house parties all the time, like music and dancing and all that. That was part of like, what we had at home. And my parents were like pretty cool in terms of like, okay, do well at school. We understand that some teachers are not the best. We send you to tuition, whatever, don't need to go to school, it's fine. They were really chill about things like that. But somehow like I had access to art because my parents were cool enough to allow that, which is not a luxury that everyone has. If you have parents who don't really pay attention to you or whatever, and you're just depending on the school system, then that's it.
We had none of that in Ireland, especially when I was growing up. We had none of that. Like our music department consisted of one room with a few recorders and a fucking piano. I mean, we didn't have
my school.
We didn't have an arts department. We didn't have a music department, and my school was one of the biggest secondary schools in our county. It was a high end school. We just didn't have any music department stuff like that. Just wasn't seen, or the arts wasn't seen as a career path. Just wasn't.
Malaysia, we all learn playing recorder.
We all learned same thing. Like recorder. Like that was our music department. Music department was a piano and a few recorders, and that was it. Like it was nonsense. Like
I didn't even have that. I didn't even have the recorder because when I was in standard 2, my class became like a special class. So they replaced music with Mandarin. So from standard 2 until standard 6, I had. I lost no music at all.
Speak
and
Mandarin?
I lost my. And
Can you speak Mandarin?
I can say ni hao ma. Like,
Man. Well, see, that's another thing. Like I think my school was also one of the better schools, and so we did have more access to a lot of things.
Was your school an international school, private?
No, it wasn't. It was a local school, but it was considered prestige, high prestasi tinggi, whatever, and the thing is they built warriors in that school. Wow. Someone close to me calls us Amazonians because we had archery in that school. But you had to have straight A's to be able to go into the school, and then in the school you learn like gamelan, you learn like a few different instruments, and then they will sponsor you. We were sponsored to go and watch musicals in KL, and it's very like it's very rare that in Malaysian education you get this, but that's because they were extra funded by government, so they had the opportunity to do all these things. I went to St. George's, by the way.
Maybe it's a Penang thing lah. Maybe it's Penang thing lah.
St. George's.
It's a St. George's thing.
See,
St. George's
thing.
thing.
Ask Fabian. He'll know.
It's always Catholic or Christian schools that fucking do best in Malaysia. My wife went to a convent school here in KL as well, like, and she's Malay. It's all
it's common here in the past. Yeah, my mom also went to Catholic school. Yeah.
It's all the Catholic schools got all the money.
I mean, the legendary Catholic school in KL now is where Pavilion Mall is.
That's where Marina went to. That's where my wife went to. Like,
that's right. There's no plaque to say there was a school here.
Yeah, that's why she will never enter the front doors of the pavilion. She has never been in the pavilion. She won't go because that's her.
She'll be angry, man.
Oh, she's livid. That's her high school.
But you see, Derek, that's also why there's a difference in like generation when you're talking about education and stuff. Like if you talk to the older generation, people like my parents and all that, they came through this English school system, right?
They had color guards and they had all that, you know, like it's a whole different world. So it really depends on the generation. And
that's true.
And if you ask like kids today, they probably have completely different experiences.
Listen, we can go into a rant about the over Islamization of the Malaysian education system all day long, like because that's how it's gone. Like
but it boils down to education.
My kids are going to Chinese school, by the way. No way to go to Kebangsaan. Yeah, fuck that shit.
Yeah, faham.
No, but you see, education is so important that it affects everything across the board, not just the arts scene. See, I'm a sports writer, and I see how Malaysian sports has gone to shit. And I would still tell people like, there's no point in getting more funds and blah blah blah, bringing in new coaches and all those kind of things. You got to go to the root of the problem, which is your education. Our education system sucks. You know, we don't have a proper thing to develop sports.
You know why the education system sucks? We all know why the education system, because it's just too much emphasis.
Propaganda.
No, it's all Islam.
Ideological. It's all ideological.
We all know that. Let's just focus on the religion and everything will be okay, which is all absolute nonsense.
Yeah,
pure nonsense. And in the meantime, you've got the Chinese and the Indians going to private tutors, and they'll take over the fucking world. Which, like, I mean,
actually, that's why a private education is such a big industry in Malaysia, because that's the alternative to what.
Or tutors, private tutors or international schools is where the intelligent parents send their kids, like, and that's where they get the real education. Like, anyway, okay.
It's not fair lah, because you need money, right?
Yeah, you need a lot of money. But also, I feel kind of conflicted. Like, I feel like if I had kids, I kind of want them to have the Kebangsaan social experience, but not necessarily the education.
Yeah. I went through that. Yeah.
Maybe the one 30 years ago, but not the one anymore.
No, it's true.
Right, guys, we've come up to the end of part 2. Are you, Luvenia, you okay to do part 3?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take another 5-minute break, and then when the part 3, part 3 will go into your journey from your from being a kid and how you got into
choke. Part 3, I also want to talk about the 3 projects that I know Luvenia has worked on, skins and blah blah blah. The Wayang Pacak, you know, Seruan Nadi and all that.
Oh, the about one. Okay.
We'll talk about but the journey. The part 3 is the journey. Okay.
Okay, focus.
5 minutes.
Focus.
Okay. All
right, bye.
And we're back with part 3 of the Luvenia Kalia podcast. Thank you, Luvenia, for sticking around for us. I was about dead, yeah. Sorry about that. Your journey into dance, I take it was it your parents just initially put you in, like the usual Asian parents, they just put you in the like ballet and stuff like that there, get you in that way. I assume you were doing piano at the same time. Or is that just
no piano?
Actually, no, never got into piano. I wish I did. Never got into piano. Actually, like Asian parents, they wanted me to do something. Yeah. My mom tried to get me to swim, and I was terrified of the water. But there was a dance studio upstairs, and I pointed up and I said, "Why don't I just do that instead?" That's on the ballet side of things. But I kind of always knew that I would go into classical Indian dance because of family. But also, see, the thing about that is I took Sangeetam Bharatanatyam and I played the veena as a kid. So that was because see, I was with Temple of Fine Arts in Penang, and the thing about that is like you can never take dance without music. Everyone has to have that music foundation, regardless of whether you take, you know, dance or you take a instrument. You have to have that music foundation because that's where we learn the rhythms that we need to, you know, and we work very closely with musicians, which I think should be a thing across the board. Like I feel like all dances should have music foundation of some sort. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And Luvenia, did you know people like Santosh back then?
No, I met Santosh in the pandemic. We
Ah.
actually we talked on Zoom before we talked in person. But of course we know mutual friends, like we have mutual friends and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about the project, Luvenia. I mean, like, you know, skins. I know it's not something that was just plucked out of thin air. It's a long process. I think you conceptualize certain things, like, you know, when you were in the States as well, and you know the process, and then you Palan, and then you got Santosh and everyone.
Well, okay, so it was obviously the last semester of my undergrad, and I think in the past few years, I've really kind of found myself in terms of movement, what I like to do, how I like to move, things like that. So my undergrad, my thesis paper was quite controversial. It was about Bharatanatyam as we know it today, being a product of reform and female oppression. What we know today as Bharatanatyam is a Sanskritized, you know, adapted version of what it used to be. That used to be more community related. It was more of you know, it was never really text based. It was never put on paper to be translated. Now it's worldwide. Even in my uni in the US, we do Bharatanatyam. It's become like something that upper castes like have access to. It's no longer, it used to be from a Devadasi community, things like that. So I learned a lot of contradictions within the forms that I did, you know, the political history of it. And I'm always inspired by the history and the politics that goes into all these dance genres. And going into that already, digging into, you know, the culture, I've always questioned a lot of rituals that we do, and I'm very inspired by rituals. I'm very attracted to rituals. At the same time, I feel disconnected to some of them. So we dug deep into rituals and things like that. So a lot of the performances that came out of that year was very related to my position in Indian culture, being half Indian, and also trying to understand this weird enforced patriarchy within the culture with such like opposing goddess worship as like you know, such a thing that everyone connects to. So there was a lot of these questions that was brought into the work. And during the, you know, when everything was, all the Black Lives Matter and all these things were blowing up, and in Malaysia, you know, people started drawing parallels of Indian bodies here and things like that. Me and Palan said, you know, we need to get away from all this, and we went to work on a durian farm. So we worked on a durian farm, woke up 5 a.m, went to pluck durian, clean every morning, because we needed to get out of the urban scape and, you know, just find some release and be away. And somehow we just started, we watched documentaries on indentured slavery. We were looking into all this, and we were sitting by the water. It's some sungai, you know, started talking about ideas, and then we said, you know what, let's start a proposal, and we wrote to Chandana, and that's how Skin happened. And that was it was a beautiful process, because we had so much time to kind of luahkan perasaan, like really get our feelings out, and like talk about reflection and where we were and how we were so kind of messed up in the head, because we're a confused generation. There's a lot of information in our history that we have no access to. There's a giant gap, right? We have very recent, like, okay, Malaysia history, and then really far back. So we don't know a lot about what has happened in between, and that's left a lot of us kind of disconnected to things. rituals, especially that we do in our families. Every Malaysian household has some sort of ritual. We don't necessarily understand it because we were taught by people who are preserving culture out of need. They were like pushing it onto you, do it, do it, do it, but never really explained to you, why am I doing this? What is the reason for this? You know, we just understand, oh, this is religion. We don't know what it's about, but there's always more to it. Just not very well explained, you know. So we started digging to all this, and we found Santosh and Tina because we kind of knew them, didn't really know them, met them for the first time on Zoom. Palin sourced them out, and Quinn, who's a part of our team, is someone that I grew up with. I went to primary school with her, and she's a great editor and everything. So we got a team together. We knew what we had a lot of things brewing, and you know, we had some sort of a 4-part structure, and we say these are the images that we are exploring, these are the themes that we're exploring, and then we gave complete artistic freedom to the cinematographer. Santosh came in, did his magic. Our editor was a whole nother level of magic, and you know, it was interesting. I think recently we reflected on it, and it was a reaction to each other's work, because what we came up with, Palin and I, was a reaction to everything that was going on around us. It was a reaction to, you know, how we were feeling and everything. And then the cinematographer comes in, and he's reacting to those images and creating something out of it. Santosh putting on the music was another reaction, and we played a little bit of which came first, the editing or the music, you know. And then when the editor, being that she was in pre-production, production, and then post-production, she was really digging into the stuff that we were saying, and she again reacted to it. And from that, all the things that people were saying, the reviews, the articles, and everything, just like huge reactions to, you know, it just feels like a chain of reaction. The whole skin process, and I think it was just so beautiful. And hopefully we have more stuff coming up soon. With the same team. So very thankful to like have come back and then just like totally vibed with this group of people, and you know, really hit it off. And yeah, hopefully we get good stuff coming from that.
Nice. Oh.
And then Luvenia, you also had I remember in Penang you worked with Budabit, and I mean Chong is, you know, a friend as well.
Yeah, Chong. Okay.
You know,
man.
Yeah,
and then,
actually, yeah, the thing with Buddha Beat, it was a really short-lived experience. It was just kind of like, hey, we need someone to do yoga for this music video we're doing. I said, hey, that's cool. Okay, I showed up 1 day gig, you know, half a day, did some filming, and that was about it. I didn't have much of a process with them, but it's funny that that video, I think went quite far or something. That like recently someone went for a Buddha Beat concert. They're like, oh, we expected you to be there. I was like, I'm actually not in the band. Like, I was just the yoga girl in one of the videos. I'm not. I obviously don't play music. Um, yeah, so you know, we've talked about like wanting to collaborate and like including dance, because I didn't really know them. Like that's how I learned about them, and you know, I'm actually like,
Cheong, man. Cheong. We're Buddha Beat is a trio now. I want to be there.
yeah, that's the thing. It was such a short, like I met them 1 day, showed up there, did a bunch of filming just to add to their, because their music is very good for yoga, and it's like, you know, very nature related and beautiful and all that. So they needed someone in, but I have never really had a lot of process with them. And it's so funny that the I guess the product said something else, that we were, you know, we're the band. It's like, I'm actually not in Budapest. Yeah. So that's about that. Yeah.
and these were like the 3 main projects that you had last year, right? I mean, the other one would definitely be the last one of the year, which I got to
which you got to see.
Yeah, that was great. That was
Actually, I had another one that was at the Spice Garden. So if you know, like Ida Reza, which was in that Wayang Pacha performance, is someone I collaborate with regularly, because she's one of the senior, I guess, dancers here in Penang, and she's always involved in most of the projects, and she does a lot of nature related work. And one of her really awesome projects was working with the Spice Garden and getting women to connect to nature, like to rediscover their disattachment from nature. So she always has a very diverse cast. She gets women, you know, who are much older, much younger. And that was, see, I said before that I had a fear of the water. So that's why I ended up dancing. And then now we're in the contemporary age where we dance in the water. So I'm like, oh shit, okay. So there was a part of that performance that I had to go into the water and rendam, right? Like fully like go into the water. And then they have this biawak called, was it gorgeous or I think it's called gorgeous.
An
They have a
adult biawak.
they have a big monitor lizard biawak swimming towards me as I'm immersing myself in the water, and I'm like, no fear, no fear, no fear. And you have to, yeah. So that was actually one of the other performances, which I would have to say happened when it was the first live performance that I did from the pandemic, since the pandemic started, and I had a complete breakdown after that, like emotional outburst, because I was suddenly in a room full of a lot of women, and you know, Ida has this thing that she wants you to go off tangent. She will take you to a place that you've never been before, you know, like without the drugs. And you're usually like you're aiming for this, you're pushing your body to this extent that you want to go in a trance-like state. And you're so exhausted, but you're still pushing, and you're going and you're going and you're going and you're being tormented by other bodies around you. So it almost feels like you're in a height of a fight and someone's like just keep like pushing you off your off your grid, you know. And then just like I had a complete breakdown at the end of the performance. It ended with me crying, and then people in the audience were like crying. But it really was this thing that we feel suffocated in quarantine. You know, our bodies are not really moving. We're just kind of like this all the time, and then suddenly you're moving a lot and you keep going, and it's like when you go for a really long run and you keep pushing and you're tired and you're still going. There was a full emotional outburst after that. And people were like, "Oh, was that choreographed?" Like, I was like, "I don't know what happened, man. I don't remember half the performance." But it's crazy. Like the first time you find yourself in a room full of people after a year of being alone, like quarantined and everything, it's nuts, man. And you can't even explain it. Like you wouldn't say you were sad. You wouldn't say it wasn't that something was going through your head or anything. It's just this burst of energy and like energy exchange with all these other bodies in space, and it's nuts, you know. It's like that adrenaline you get from performing, but it's like times 100 from all the performances you didn't do. Somehow it was nuts. Yeah, that was really, really beautiful. I think that was me performing. See, with Sarwan Nadi that we just did, it was me and Ida choreographing together to come up with the performance. And that's what I was saying about Penang doing a lot of nature related content. See, the process with Ombak Ombak was that they take us on tours, they show us the rivers, they explain to us the science behind it, what's going on, why is there resistance, why is there this, why did the rivers overflow. You know, rivers are meant to just kind of move and migrate with the nature of the landscape. But what we do is we concretize them, we straighten them out, and then you have banjir and all these things. The irony and the beauty, well, not beauty, but the irony is that every time I've done a show that's nature related with Ida, there's some sort of natural disaster that happens. And during Wayang Pachak was when the banjir happened.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to stop doing. Maybe you need to stop doing shows with Ida.
It was crazy, you know, like
time it with the politics in this country.
It was like the time there was a gig. Bono was going through his usual fucking U2 gig, and Bono was going through his usual fucking virtue signal on stage, and he's on stage, and Bono's going, "Every time I click my fingers, a child dies," and someone in the audience shouted, "Stop fucking clicking your fingers!"
Yeah, that was crazy. And with the one with the in the Spice Garden, all the ladies experienced some sort of pipe burst at the same time. There was this overflow of water in everyone's houses, and I was like, "What is going on? Like, how does this keep happening?" But Ida, of course, has really, really meaningful work. I think in 2019 we did a Joshan Festival on reclaimed land. You know how like, but so much irony. Like we were on Beach Street, reclaimed land. We performed
Yeah.
on reclaimed land. And there's this thing going around about Nalayans saying like, okay, if you keep reclaiming our land, how are we gonna get our fish? What are we gonna eat? Are we gonna makan pasir? And we were literally makan pasir off the street. We were eating sand on the street and spitting it out. And we had this performance right after there was a big speech about the progression of Penang and blah 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 blah. And then we have this huge thing that feels like a tolak tambak, like a pushback, and in a government funded festival. So yes, we were excluded from some papers. I'm not gonna say which. And you know,
say it.
but we were on
Burn,
the
just
front page of other papers, you know. So it's very meaningful work. Yeah, so I think most of my experience performing Penang very nature related, very activist. Sort of comes from an activist background and very fulfilling in many ways. Yeah, so that's like the bulk of performances I've been doing. Of course, I have some solos here and there that I was submitting to the US, and a little film that I've
You got
edited.
nice diverse sort of
Yep.
work you're doing. I think that's
It's very
important. I
interesting.
think, yeah.
Yeah, they're always interesting. They're very fulfilling, and I'm always learning a lot,
Well,
which
that's
is
good.
just beautiful. Yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Okay.
Can we
And
find them online? Can we find where can we find all this stuff? Like, you know, we're talking about. I mean, of course, Seruan Nadi was like a live performance, but
yeah,
I'm quite sure that
Sarwan Nadi is actually still on the Ombak Ombak page. So if you go on Facebook and you go to Ombak Ombak Studios, I think it's still there. They've edited a proper one and they've put it up for everyone to view. Some of my solos is on my website. If whenever you guys are putting this, I can send you a link. Most of them are there. Skin is closed, but you guys can definitely get access. I can send it through.
All right.
We're still figuring out where we want to go with that, because I think it hasn't done its deed. Like I feel like it could definitely go somewhere else. The film, yeah. And right now, what's coming up actually is Silau Maya. So I've worked with a experimental design team in KL, and they do motion capturing. So it's dance gig, motion capturing, 3 artists. And they've created a virtual world around us. So I'll definitely send you guys information on that. That's going to be super cool.
Sounds
And
cool.
I don't know if you know, the music is by Shahil.
Shahil. Shahil who?
I'll send you guys the information. Yeah. So he's really cool, like yeah, I guess composer. Yeah.
Okay.
Really cool music, fun gig, fun people. Yep. So that's coming up. That's a virtual reality online showing.
Nice.
So cool stuff. And currently working with communities, doing community arts work. You know, working with kids and trying to figure out best practice. One of them saw my tattoo the other day and they gave me a weird look, and I was like, I don't know if this is okay.
Okay, there's nothing
Yeah,
wrong
like,
with that.
I don't know. They're gonna go back to their parents and be like, "Oh, chick, what did you?" Yeah.
The gangster. Knowing Malaysians and tattoo.
Malaysians.
My wife is Iban, by the way, so tattoo
really?
is normal, man. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Tattoo is normal. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Luvenia, we have come to the end of the podcast. Thank you.
Oh.
Fantastic. Oh, man.
I feel like, whoa.
Pull the plug. That's when you come out the matrix.
Yeah.
We have come to the end.
Out of the immersive podcast.
Out of the immersive.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much. It was fantastic conversation.
Yeah.
Thank
Hope you had
you.
a good
Thank you for
time.
having me.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Do you want to give our audience your social media links so they can follow you if you have them?
Do I say it like at how do I do this?
I don't know,
The
whatever.
YouTube way.
However you want to do it. However you want to do it.
Well, I'm Love Kalia on Instagram. My website is available in the bio. Other than that, I'm
Your
around.
website.
I'm around. If you're in Penang, we'll probably run into each other. That's how it is.
You're around doing your best.
That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's
Okay.
it from me.
Okay, so the Luvenia Kalia podcast, we are done.
Thank
you
you.
so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Agree.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys. You're
too.
gonna have a great rest of the year. Speaking it into existence.
Right.
Right. Wow. Thank you
Okay,
for blessing.
and
Yes.
we are done.